The World Health Organization has finally cleared the Made in India Covaxin this week. Do you know how long they took to give this clearance to Covaxin? 16 weeks. Do you know which vaccine the WHO cleared first of all? Pfizer. Do you know how long they took for that approval? 6 weeks. So why did Covaxin take 16 weeks? The WHO kept citing trial data. They wanted more, or they weren't convinced. They said their approval process cannot be compromised. They don't cut corners, which is very good because vaccines are a matter of life and death. Now, what if we told you that Pfizer's trials were compromised, that Pfizer's data is not clean? A whistleblower has blown the lid of Pfizer's clinical trials. Others have joined in to corroborate her version. Pfizer has not commented yet. But this is a company that we've been reporting on for a long time now. We've been telling you how it bullies governments to sell its vaccines, the kind of sweeping demands it makes. And I'll come to what the whistleblower has said. But first, let's recap the kind of demands Pfizer makes of governments. It demands sovereign assets as collateral for shots. It demands indemnity, meaning protection against any legal action. It controls donations, meaning even if you pay for the vaccine, Pfizer will decide how and where you can donate it. It even decides delivery dates and when it will be sued, where it will be sued in case something goes wrong. If you buy Pfizer's vaccine, any dispute will be settled in secret arbitration courts, not as per the law of the land. These are the terms that Pfizer sets before governments. And we've told you all of this before. It's shocking. But all of this pales in comparison to what I'm about to share with you tonight. Pfizer's trial data could have been compromised. A former employee involved in the trials has blown the whistle. She says Pfizer trial data was falsified. Serious compromises were made in the process. There were not enough trained vaccinators. Investigators were slow to follow up on adverse events. All of these allegations have been published in the British Medical Journal. And we have a copy of that report. On Gravitas tonight, we'll tell you about these damaging allegations. We begin with the whistleblower, the person who had the courage to speak out about Pfizer's lapses. Her name is Brooke Jackson. She worked with a company called Ventavia. Ventavia is a subcontractor of Pfizer. It is a company that Pfizer hired to conduct the trials, the clinical trials, before a vaccine is approved. Now, Jackson, the whistleblower, was involved in the Pfizer vaccine trial, but she did not last there very long. She was fired within 2 weeks. And she was fired because she complained about the lapses in the trials. What were these lapses? Let me tell you. Number one, the labs were poorly managed, apparently. Pfizer tested its vaccine at more than 150 sites. At least 3 of these sites, there were clear red flags. The biggest one is linked to the patients. Their identities could have been compromised. At one of the sites, the whistleblower, Jackson, found vaccine packaging just left out in the open. The packaging had the identification numbers of the participants on them. And this is a serious lapse, and I'll explain why. When a vaccine is put through a trial, not everyone gets the shot. Half of these people are given the vaccine, the others are given a placebo to check if the vaccine works at all. Now, who has got what needs to remain a secret. This is how you protect the integrity of the trial. But here, in the case of Pfizer, their identification numbers, the identities of the patients were left out in the open. Anyone who saw it could identify the patients who got the vaccine, and they could potentially try to influence the outcome. It's a serious lapse and not the only one. Problem number 2, apparently Ventavia, the company conducting the trials, did not have adequate staff. Some patients showed symptoms consistent with the Wuhan virus. There were not enough people to collect the swab samples for a test. Reports say this lapse could have skewed the data. And this entirely defeats the purpose of a trial. The vaccine is being tested to see if it works against the Wuhan virus. Now, if the recipients get the shot and are still infected, it raises a lot of questions about whether the vaccine works or not. Is it effective in fending off the virus? Can it stop the disease from progressing? How effectively are the antibodies working? And we are not saying that the vaccine is not effective. That's for scientists to decide. That's for experts to decide. But all of these questions must be answered because vaccines are approved on the basis of this trial data. And if these trials are compromised, if the data is not clean, that puts a question mark on the vaccine. And these were the problems that stood out. Jackson, the whistleblower, made 6 other observations that can potentially skew the results. They're part of this report, and I'm going to read out some of what she said for you. She says the participants were placed in a hallway after injection and not being monitored by clinical staff, lack of timely follow-up of patients who experienced adverse events, protocol deviations not being reported, vaccines not being stored at proper temperatures, mislabeled laboratory specimens, and targeting Ventavia staff for reporting these types of problems. So what did Jackson do about these problems once she spotted them? Well, first she raised them with the company, nothing happened. Then she went to the trial sites herself. She gathered photographic evidence of the problems, of how the trial was not being conducted properly. So instead of fixing the problems, Ventavia, the company, questioned Jackson. So she decided to escalate the matter. She wrote to the US Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. This is the American regulator that approves vaccines. It's also the regulator that approved Pfizer. What did the FDA do about her complaint? They sent her an acknowledgement. They've received the complaint. They said the FDA, and I'm quoting, could not comment on any investigation that her complaint might open. A few days later, Jackson received a phone call. It was from an FDA inspector. They discussed the complaint, and after that, nothing happened. And you might dismiss this report saying that it's just one woman's version, but it's not. There is more to this story. There are other former employees of Ventavia who had similar concerns. One of them wrote to Jackson and said this: everything that you complained about was spot on. So others agreed that there were lapses. 2 other former employees have also spoken out. Their identities remain hidden. One of them said that they'd never experienced such a helter-skelter work environment. I'll give you another quote. I've never had to do what they were asking me to do ever. It just seemed like something a little different from normal, the things that were allowed and expected. One of them raises serious doubts about the data, and I'm quoting again, I don't think it was good, clean data. It's a crazy mess. We're talking about the world's leading pharma giant here. We're talking about the world's leading drug regulator. Both evidently cut corners and ignored red flags. Pfizer and the FDA want the world to trust their assessments. These revelations show they cannot be taken at face value. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.